the meeting to order. The chair notes there is a quorum present. We will do the flag salute. Flags over in this corner. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll go into additions and revisions to the agenda. Do you guys have anything?
Yeah, I do. And the reason being, I just got the email yesterday, and I think there's a sense of urgency from Oregon business and this grant for technical assistance. Did you,
For the broadband
for
one?
the broadband, that is due on the 2nd, I think, of February, and well, need to visit about it.
So how about we stick it under new business, point 2, and that's the detail. Yeah. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, let me just see here. We'll move into correspondence and public comments. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time. Speakers are asked to sign in on the public comment sheet. If you're here on Zoom and wish to submit public comment, if you could just drop in the chat just your name, and then that way I'll get to you in order. And then if you are here on your phone, it is *6 to unmute yourself, and I'll make sure that there's enough time for folks dialing in on their phone to unmute and offer comment as well. Speakers are asked to sign in, wait to be recognized by the chair, give your name and address, and limit comments to 3 minutes. Before I go down the list, we did have a couple of letters that I wanted to just note for the record. First one comes from Linda Smith. Says, I want to express my concern about the decision-making process for the commissioners versus the county judge and commissioners. I want you to know that I would strongly request that information be provided to the general public and that the decision be made by a vote of the people of Gilliam County. Thank you for your time and consideration, Linda Jo Smith. And then a second one, this one says, Dear Judge Farrar Campbell, Commissioner Shannon and Watkins, please include my letter in your court correspondence. I'm encouraging you to listen to the constituents of Gilliam County. You have received other letters asking you to reconsider your decision to change the court structure. You've heard what the district attorney said at the meeting in Arlington, December 20th, 2023. If your county council had been present at this meeting, as well as at other meetings, perhaps they could have answered some of the questions that arose. I remember a time when the county council was present at most meetings. Why have you not taken advantage of this service? Please put the decision of changing the court structure to a vote of the people. You have claimed you are listening to the public. You have claimed to be transparent. You have claimed to have good relations with your employees and staff. We would like to actually be witness to these claims. You were elected because we thought you would represent the voters of this county by listening to our concerns. We had faith you would take our concerns to heart. I've lost faith. It can be restored depending on your actions. Reen Durfee from Condon.
Can we talk a little louder, I mean, a little more clearly?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time.
Maybe a little
Is
slow.
this mic working or is this speaker working or is
So this speaker is the one that's going out on the
so
Zoom.
you're not connected up?
So we're not connected in here. I don't think they have a speaker system in here. For the record, though, all of these are also online as part of the county court packet. So if you want to go back and read them, they'll all be included as part of the correspondence there. And then one more. To the Gilliam County Court, while I stand in support of the court's decision to cede authority in juvenile cases to the circuit court, and I am at least amenable to the idea of the recently discussed changes to county structure, I must say that I find a couple causes for concern in the way this process has borne out that I would like to see addressed during the discussion slated for the January 3rd meeting. During the discussion portion of the December 20th meeting, it became apparent that there is a dispute with regard to the legality of court order number 2023-01, in particular with the county's ability to cede its probate jurisdiction to the circuit court. Specifically, while ORS 111.115 allows the county court to remand individual proceedings to the Circuit Court, ORS 111.075 stipulates that actual jurisdiction over these cases continues to reside with the county court. During the meeting, it was noted that while the county's advising counsel did not identify a problem that precludes moving forward from this decision, our district attorney apparently does. To my mind, it is critical that the county address this issue prior to making further decisions that hinge upon the provenance of 2023-01. While my personal hope is that the decision was legally sound, my concern is that should it prove otherwise, major governmental changes that rely upon its legality would be extremely complicated to resolve down the line. But I will be unable to attend the court meeting on January 3rd. As a resident, I would very much like to hear a more detailed explanation from the court on the legal rationale employed by advising counsel in arriving at their recommendation. I don't expect to see signed documents or anything of that sort, but I do feel that a more in-depth explanation of the interplay between these statutes is warranted in order to set our minds at ease. The proposed, number two, the proposed ideas of changing our court structure either by abolishing the county judge in favor of a board of commissioners or by reducing the judge to a part-time position in favor of a county administrator, while laudable goals represent significant changes to the form and function of our county government. As such, I feel strongly that these decisions should be remanded to a vote of the citizens. While I recognize that time is apparently of the essence and that the county court has no legal obligation to do so, I feel that given the scope of the decision, there may exist a moral imperative to put this before the people. Obviously, there has been a significant controversy surrounding these issues. I believe that if we are to move past this divisiveness, it must be understood without a doubt that such changes are in fact the will of the county and its citizens. I understand that decisions have not yet been made and that the county court is currently in the discussion and information gathering phase of these potential plans. It is in that spirit that I send these thoughts and requests. Please accept my thanks for all the work the current court has done so far, and I wish you all the best going forward. Sincerely, Jason Campbell, Condon. All right, so there are those. 1 second. Let me get out of this. And then while we're on correspondence, and we'll get into public comment, we also have the November 2023 Treasurer's Report. It includes the bank account balances, the fund balance summary, and the revenue expense report up through November 2023. If anybody's interested in seeing those, that is part of the county court's packet online. And then the other thing comes to us from the Citizens Advisory Committee, Columbia Ridge Landfill. It's the annual report to the Gilliam County Court for 2023. And I'll just read it as it's brief. The Columbia Ridge Landfill Advisory Committee met 3 times in 2023. Meetings were also available to attend electronically via Zoom. Waste Management provided written and verbal reports on the activities at the site and within Gilliam County. No action has been taken with regard to rail crossing delays on Cedar Springs Road. Paving on Cedar Springs Road has been delayed for another year. Duties of the CAC were reviewed and discussed as per the conditional use permit with Gilliam County. Discussion was also heard regarding the cleanliness and availability of empty containers at the drop-off area at the business center. Respectfully submitted, Richard Harper, Chair. Okay. So that is the correspondence. We will move into public comment. We're going to go through the list, and if folks can remember to just state your name and address at the beginning. Let me also pull up the Zoom, make sure I don't miss anybody. Again, for folks who are signing in via Zoom, if you would like to submit public comment, if you could just put your name into the chat so that I've got a list of you as well, so we don't miss anybody. And we'll start with folks in the room first, and then we'll move on to folks in the chat. Before we do that, Commissioner Watkins.
I have something
You
I would
wanted
like
to
to say. I'm not gonna lie, after the last meeting, when I went home, I had a bit of a meltdown. And the next day I wrote this. I have lived in Gilliam County all my life. My great-grandfather Ralph Potter, my grandfather Clarence Potter were both county commissioners. In fact, Ralph's name is on the front of the courthouse in Condon as the court that rebuilt it. My husband and I have operated a business since 1988. We raised 2 sons here and are now watching 3 of our 9 grandkids grow up here. So I care deeply about this county. I could go over the many changes I have witnessed in my adult life and the changes that county departments have evolved from. Change happens. It's hard for some people to adapt while others pick up and move on. Since 2018, the county budget has gone from 55 million to last year's budget, 82 million. The decision to hire a finance director to have a level of checks and balances for the budget that is large is fiscally responsible. The fact that it is met with so much resistance from staff makes me wonder why, and should be a huge red flag to the general public. The county court is responsible for managing the business affairs, including the financial responsibility and budget, as well as advocating for Gilliam County at the state level. We attend regional boards, approve ordinances, resolutions, court orders, and grant requests. We have passed and recently updated the strategic goals to advocate for housing, affordable, and more importantly, available childcare, and pursue federal dollars for grant broadband. Meanwhile, public health has moved to Gilliam County to better serve our residents, keeping our public health money in Gilliam County instead of Wasco County. That alone would be a plateful, but we add to this personnel administration and addressing everyday concerns of the public. My final point is I have sat through many court meetings over the years on behalf of the school, Little League, and Fair Board. I have never witnessed the level of disrespect shown to this court at the last meeting. I will listen to everyone for and in opposition of ideas with respect. They teach us that the most effective way to teach respectful behavior to children is to model it yourself. Please keep this in mind as you make your comments today. Thanks.
Okay, let's move into the list. First up is Shannon. Do you want to come up first?
Hi, my name's Shannon Kopic. My address is P.O. Box 386 Condon. I live here in Condon. And I guess I have more questions. I'm more on fact finding than on any particular comment in any way about what's going on with the change to the format of the government. So I would like to know, Liz, what are your typical job duties? And if there were an administrator hired, how would that change your job duties or open up more time maybe for other things?
Yeah, so I'm happy to answer. So it's several hats, actually. So the day-to-day administrator, which is what we're potentially talking about hiring an administrator to do. Primarily that is managing staff, but more so, a lot of it is making sure that we're in compliance with labor law, that we're in compliance with family medical leave law, Oregon family medical leave law. I get a lot of questions about one-off questions for employees who are wanting to, say, use a specific time off for something that they want to do and whether they can legally do that. So a lot of my time is spent sort of interpreting what isn't clearly stated in law and what isn't clearly stated in Gilliam County policy for those one-off situations where employees have something that's come up that's unique. We spend quite a lot of time doing that. I also spend quite a bit of time really helping staff and elected officials navigate when they have a need, what the process is to actually put that before the county court. So as an example, yesterday I had a conversation with Chris Fitz about a situation with our fire alarm system in the building. And apparently there's an issue with the copper wire coming in that it's on and it's throwing error signals. So I spent a solid half an hour yesterday troubleshooting what we need to do and if we need to replace it, what the procurement process for that would be. A lot of my time is in that. If we have an employee who is needing to go through a disciplinary action, if we have, I am usually the one, although I'm not often always the one that's disciplining, I am the one that is making sure that the county is following the process so that we're contacting our legal counsel, that we're contacting our insurance company, and that everything is being documented appropriately. Often when that happens, I will say it can suck 2-3 weeks out of my schedule completely, because it's the most pressing thing that has to happen, honestly. And so I think I said during the last meeting, there's a trade-off. which is when I am doing that, which is my job and which is the first priority because the employees are the ones who need an answer today. That means I don't have the bandwidth to tackle housing. It means I don't have as much time to get to broadband, to childcare access, to all of the things really that I suspect the voters, when they were thinking about what they wanted the judge to be focused on, were thinking about those things that affected their lives, not necessarily the things that are important, but that don't really go beyond a handful of employees within the county courthouse. So I could go on longer, but that's kind of a general gist of.
That's okay. So then the next question I have is if there was a change to the format of the county court, wouldn't part of the administrator's costs come from what is typically now the judge's salary? So the judge, who would now become a commissioner, would be kind of on par with the other commissioners, and the salary would be less, so the administrator's cost would come from that. Is that correct?
Let me
At
just
least
say,
partially.
yeah, let me just say that I have to have a disclaimer here, which is if the court makes a decision that impacts my financial, affects me financially, that creates a conflict for me.
Sure.
But I can talk generally that I think the court said during the last meeting that they were looking at having the three of us be co-equals in terms of responsibility and in terms of compensation. So yes, there's a substantial difference between my current compensation and where the commissioners are. And I suspect that savings could be used for any number of things, including administrative costs.
Okay. What is the legal process for changing the probate duties?
So that, from our understanding from legal counsel, is through a court order that we have already passed.
Okay.
And so those court cases have already been transferred up to the circuit court. They were done from that court order as well as individual court orders that I signed prior to the jurisdiction leaving. And so they are all sitting in circuit court currently.
Okay, so just for you guys is a little bit for me, I came from a place where there were 3 county commissioners. When I came to Gilliam County, it was very strange to me to hear a judge and 2 county commissioners. It took me a while to figure out what that was all about. And at least from my experience, where I came from, the 3 county commissioner system worked well. Seeing what I saw a few years ago, and I know this isn't necessarily what you're talking about today, but with what happened with Dennis, and Dennis was a great person to have acting as the county commissioner. I truly appreciated him, but when he became unable to function as a county commissioner and it left only 2 commissioners available to function, I felt like that was not a very good thing. So in my opinion, if you were going to change, if you were able to go to a 5 commissioner court, that would be maybe resolve some of those problems. And that's my thing.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
For folks who came in late, if anybody else would like to sign in for public comment, there's a sheet over here, but we're just working our way through the list. Next up is Dawn Farm.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Would it be all right if I face this way so that it's easier to understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
Okay, great. I have a question about the proposed administrative position and Liz's addition to it as becoming a part-time judge. You stated several people suggested it to you during the last county court session. I'm sorry, but I do not remember that being stated at all during county court. And I wasn't able to go back and listen because it wasn't uploaded yet. Historically, Gilliam County has always had a full-time judge. They would be there from before 7 in the morning till after 5 o'clock at night. As a recently retired Gilliam County employee, I already know firsthand that you generally do not show up for work until 10 o'clock in the morning. You generally leave at 3 in the afternoon. And it seems to me that you're already a part-time judge. You announced you're not seeking a re-election next year. And I was wondering if you're planning on applying for the administration position, which I would assume would be a full-time job. Any questions?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Lynn?
I'm gonna choose to not speak at this moment.
Grant?
Here.
That would be great, because then Cameron can pick you up.
Grant Wilkins, Arlington, Oregon. I just had a follow-up question with the court. It's been brought up by individuals and the DA regarding the probate. Has the court followed up with their legal counsel just to verify, or are they worried about this, or has anybody called?
So I have been in discussions with her. There is no change in the recommendation. So I think, you know, we'll see how things play out at this point, but at this point, there's no further action.
Huh, okay. I was just curious if you were the only one contacting, or if the commissioners had contacted, followed up with legal.
I mean, I'll save it till we hit that agenda item, but I think I can respond to some of that.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Nothing at this time. Okay. Scott,
I'm good at this moment.
okay, Dana?
Okay, you may get somebody else up there to speak while I make it up there.
You can stand from there if you like.
Oh, yeah, I could.
Go ahead.
No, I couldn't. Okay, I'll come up there.
While Dana's coming up, I'll just remind folks who are on the Zoom, if you would also like to provide public comment, if you could type your name in the chat, that would be great. Currently, I don't see any. Hi, Dana.
Hello. Okay. I haven't got my notes this time. Okay, I do have some questions. First of all, I don't understand what the hurry is here. I don't understand why you're doing this right now. Okay. I also, what I kept reading in this over and over and over again, the court will review, the court will consider, the court will, the court will, the court will, the court will. Okay, not the public, the court will. Over and over and over again, I see you three mentioned. Okay, you referred to a hiring committee. Who was on the hiring committee, for instance, for Delaney? It consisted of more than 3 people. Okay, but now we're down to 3 people. And it says in here in your document, the county court has formed a hiring committee consisting of the county court members and Mr. and Mrs. Placeholder. Who are Mr. and Mrs. Placeholder?
We are discussing that today.
That's in the discussion today.
Okay, and you're going to add people to this committee? Because I
It'd be part of
suggest,
the discussion, yes,
first
absolutely.
of all, you know what? One of my problems with this whole thing is the organization. Okay, you have a document in here that says placeholder. I don't think this is what we should have been seeing. And there are other people that you can add to your committee, and frankly, I don't think it's a good idea even to have only 5 people. I think you need to add at least 3 other people. And the reason for that is that way you can't buffalo your way through. You would be forced to negotiate. You have people up there who do have experience with this county. You have Sabrina Wagner, Ellen Wagner, you have your DA, okay? You have your finance director. And then on that committee, you could also add a couple of very upstanding citizens. And there's nothing in your statute that prohibits that. But it would keep you transparent.
Dana,
Because right now, please.
Okay.
When you speak, nobody is entitled to interrupt you. So please,
Sure.
allow me to finish. Okay, this should have already been decided, not today. Because it says right here that I move to adopt the Gilliam County Administrator hiring procedures. How can you adopt hiring procedures when you don't even have a hiring committee? And I want to see more than 5 people on there. I want to see independent thought. Because now my experience with you is that you speak and these two follow. Now, that may be wrong.
Okay,
but
I'm
it is-
stopping you right now.
No, please don't.
I'm stopping you. This is exactly what I'm talking about. We're not even to that section and you're already criticizing. We haven't even got to that.
Okay. let me
You're
finish.
picking it apart, Dana.
No,
I don't want to listen to you anymore. I'm sorry.
okay, fine, don't listen,
I'm not.
okay? But the problem is that this should have been organized ahead of time. And
Dana,
I want to see on this hiring committee, independent thought. Okay, now that is my opinion. Okay? In addition to this, I mean, we don't even have a job description. We don't know what you're hiring. And somebody just asked about the description. Okay, it seems to me that that should have been here first so that we could review that. Okay? I'm looking through here, for instance, on this, we don't know what a probation period is. We don't even know what salary you're considering. That's left blank. We have no idea where this is coming from. And frankly, I don't know where the money is coming from. Okay, if you have all this money available, you have like, what, 50 employees over there. Why didn't you consider giving them a raise? That would be a good consideration. But what I have a problem with is the organization, and it says here on January 17th, adopt, February 7th, adopt, February 21, approve. It seems to me when I'm looking at this, that the decision has already been made. And that I'm not sure that what any of us have to say is going to make any difference.
so. Hey, guys, could you keep it down in the back, please? Thanks. Dana, I think I would just point out to you that we aren't able to make those decisions that you just said, who's gonna be on the hiring committee, who's
Why
gonna
not?
do, until we are in a public
Public
meeting
meeting.
discussing them. So
Okay.
we actually have to be sitting here discussing them, which we have not done.
So we do throw out names for election? Is that what we do?
No,
No,
we are going to get to that point in the agenda where we talk about whether we want to go forward with this. And if so, we talk through the details.
Okay, and what I'm telling you is that I think some of these details should have already been available to us.
We can't
I
make,
mean,
we
if you want,
can't make those details.
We don't have them.
We
But-
have to discuss them in public. So we can't come
You
with a
have-
pre-formed,
you have to discuss a job description in public?
yes.
yes,
Then we should have at least some kind of document so we see what it is that you're discussing.
we don't have one yet.
Yeah, I know.
All right, I think your 3 minutes are up. Thank you for your feedback. We're moving on. Okay, let's go into the actual agenda. We're in the consent agenda. Do you guys have any questions about any of these?
Did we have anybody online? Nobody online?
No one, last call for anybody online. If you couldn't figure out how to do the chat. But no one's put anything in and I don't see anyone unmuting. So I think we can move into the regular agenda. We're on the consent agenda.
Everything.
I didn't see anything.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
So moved and seconded that April, nope, we're taking them during the public comment themselves. Today. April had asked if they'll have an opportunity to speak later. So anybody, before we get into that,
What's she asking?
she said, well, we have an opportunity to talk later, no discussion on what you're considering. I think there'll be a discussion amongst the court, but we were hoping for public comment to come during the public comment today.
So there won't be any in the new business section.
It'll be during the public comment, which is right open.
Right now or never?
Right now, not never, but
Yes, sir.
there'll be another meeting.
You were hoping it would be
But
right
for,
now.
for today, yes.
Are you amenable to us talking under the discussion when you, possible action regarding approval of county administrator hiring procedures? wouldn't you allow us to talk at that point?
We're allowing you to talk right now, so if you have
Well,
input
we
on
want to hear
that.
what you say a little bit, then we want to have some input to the street. It's a two-way street.
If you've not been able to talk about it beforehand, because then you would be a quorum and that would not be legal,
Mhm.
then how can we comment on something that you haven't even talked about? You see, you're
Yeah,
basically putting a muzzle on us.
I personally don't have a problem with, feedback during the item in discussion, as long as it's respectful and we can have those discussions. I don't have a
Agreed.
problem with that.
Well, I just like to say, a county court,
Do you want to speak?
yeah.
Go ahead.
A county court making themselves accountable to nobody should not be trusted by anybody. And what we're asking for is a little accountability and a little opportunity. There's a lot of smart people sitting in this audience right here, guys that have a lot of good sense, a lot of ability to think, and you're not allowing us to come forward with our thoughts because you're gonna force us to have one little moment to talk, not knowing what you're planning on doing.
Okay. So we,
Can I?
yeah, go ahead, Sky.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. I want to go back to the continuation of the discussion is establishing a Board of County Commissioners that we talked about at the last meeting. You say you have a legal opinion. In the meantime, I've done some research. I've talked to 5 different individuals, some of them are attorneys, talking about those statutes that you mentioned, especially 203. Whether that grants you the legal authority to make those changes. Of all 5 of those, their opinion is it doesn't grant this court that opinion. So I would say at a minimum, you're still in conflict with your original motion of whether you have the authority or not. I still think the best course of action to prevent liability to yourself is a motion to reconsider until you get a clear ruling on that. You have one opinion. There's obviously 5 others that say you don't. I think if you continue on with that, you're at some kind of liability, and I would think a motion to reconsider until you get that clarified for sure with a ruling, and it has to go to a circuit court to get that kind of ruling, to know that you do have the legal authority, because I don't think you do at this time, according to my research. So again, I reiterate, I still think your best course of action is a motion to reconsider until you get clarification on whether you have the legal authority to transfer probate out of your current position. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, guys. Okay, we have a motion on the table, which is, or on the floor, which is to approve the consent agenda, which consists of consider approval of January bills pending review, consider approval of Konica digital copier printer maintenance agreement with Bohn's Printing Incorporated, consider approval of right-of-way application from Avangrid Renewables, consider appointment of Rachel Boyer as Gilliam County Budget Officer, designate voting precincts Arlington #1, East Condon #6, West Condon #7, designate county roads outside of incorporated areas of Arlington, Condon, and designate county roads outside of incorporated areas of Arlington, Condon, and Lonerock as road district #1, designate Gilliam County depositories, Bank of Eastern Oregon, US Bank, LGIP, and designate newspapers of record, Times Journal, and East Oregonian. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to unfinished business. This is consider second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2023-03, amending the Gilliam County zoning and land development ordinance to reduce property setback requirements in Article 4, Sections 4.00 and 4.210, Condon Urban Growth Area Zones, UGAC and UGAC1, and adopting other implementing amendments. Just as a reminder, back on December 20th, we conducted a public hearing to receive public comments. The Gilliam County Planning Commission also took this up back on November 28th, 2023, with a recommendation to approve the text amendments. We closed the public hearing back on the 20th and proceeded with first reading of the amendment, first reading of the ordinance. In order to adopt the ordinance, I would need a second reading, and then adoption can occur.
I move to have the second reading of ordinance number 2023-03 by title only.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we have the second reading of ordinance number 2023-03 by title only. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Accept really quick. In the county court for the county of Gilliam, ordinance number 2023-03 in the matter of an ordinance amending the Gilliam County zoning and land development ordinance to reduce property setback requirements in Article 4, sections 4.200 and 4.210, Condon urban growth area zones UGAC and UGAC1, and adopting other implementing amendments. Then I would need a motion to accept and then adopt the ordinance.
I move to accept the second reading of ordinance number 2023-03 by title only and adopt the ordinance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the second reading of ordinance number 2023-03 by title only and to adopt the ordinance. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're gonna move into 5.2, which is continuation of discussion regarding establishing a board of county commissioners. Commissioners, where are we? How would you like to proceed?
I'll start out. Just for the record, I want everybody to know that, especially over the last 2 weeks, I've received a lot of support to move forward with what we're doing. And so there's a lot of support on both sides of this. However, I'm uncomfortable with moving forward with a board of commissioners at this point, because I took the recommendation of the DA when we moved juvenile, and I don't feel comfortable not taking a recommendation on probate. I also have some concerns about legal counsel's position in that this could be challenged. I believe it could be challenged. They told us, they suggested we get a legislative fix. I think it requires a legislative fix, and I do not think that's impossible to get. I think it's probably going to be pretty easy to get, except for the timing and how legislation works. I'd like to see if it couldn't be done in the short session here this spring, but all of our representatives and senators are going to be allowed to bring two bills only, which means we would get 4 for our area, 2 from Representative Smith and 2 from Senator Hansel. And I doubt that they're going to want to make one little bill for Gilliam County a priority in the short session. So in likelihood, it would probably move to 2025 in the long session. But because of the reason the ordinances were written, in my understanding, is because circuit court judges didn't want to come to rural frontier counties to hear cases in the 1960s. And that's kind of where some of these ordinances have been put in place, that issue that no longer exists. That is probably going to be something that you can get a legislative fix on relatively easy once you get it through the process. So I'm uncomfortable moving forward with the Board of Commissioners at this time in any way to take any action, but I would like the community, and I'm not sure what process we want to go to continue this process, take public input, and let's have some discussions about how and why this may or may not make sense. In my mind, it's absolutely necessary for a lot of the reasons that I discussed in the last court meeting. And I'll discuss further as we go into the next agenda item, but the structure we are now under is outdated and not in the 20th century. And I'd like to see if we can't get moved in that direction. And we'd like to continue some sort of a process to have public input, go through that process. If it needs to go to a vote and that's decided, that's going to be a long process. And we have some urgency issues that we need to address that I talked about in the last meeting that haven't changed in the last 2 weeks. And we can talk about those here in a little bit. Thanks.
Leah?
So I tend to agree with Pat because as long as that probate issue is sitting out there, I don't feel comfortable with going against what the DA says.
I would say we could stay on the order. No problem staying on the order, knowing that it could be challenged. But, you know, I think that's a possibility. So I think we have a couple options.
In terms of the bigger discussion, I think there have been several folks obviously have reached out and said, put it to a vote of the people. Others have suggested that we look at moving forward with a charter committee. Is that something that you guys would like to
Yeah,
bring
I
that
don't.
back at a future date to discuss?
I'm not sure what that process is exactly, so, I haven't had, with everything else that's going on, I sure haven't had time to look into it.
In broad strokes, basically, it's a resolution by the county court. It can also be started by initiative by the people. And then it's laid out in statute about how the people are, for the charter committee are picked. The court picks a portion, the state representatives pick a portion, and then the group collectively, I think, picks the last person. And then there's certain timelines within the statute for how long they have to work. I think it's up to 2 years they have.
So you said it could be something the court move forward with or the public move forward with?
Correct. It can be initiated by an initiative of the people, or it can be initiated by a resolution from the court. And then what happens is the county charter committee then comes up with a potential charter for the county, establishing what the government structure looks like. I think they can actually submit multiple variations on the budget. And then that is put on, once it's finished, it's put on the actual ballot. And then my understanding is if there's multiple charters, so multiple variations, say if the committee couldn't settle on one, then the one that gets the highest vote then becomes the charter. So if they both pass, for instance, but one has more than the other, then that becomes the charter of the county. In broad strokes.
Well, I'm in
If you-
favor of going to a board of commissioners. So if the public's not, I would like to have them start that process.
If, like what Shannon said with 5, I think you do have to have
Yeah,
a
I
charter
think you do have to
committee
go into a
to do
charter.
that.
And
And
I,
it does have to go to the vote regardless.
So
And I-
you do not have it to have a charter to move it to 5. Those can be two separate things.
Okay. But
It
you
does
have
have
to
to be
go
voted
vote.
on. But the charter is the overall, sets more than just what the county court does. It also looks at other elected officials. It looks at a wide variety of county government, not just this particular decision. So it's a broader look. I think they did it, Max Stinchfield told me they did it once, I think when Judge Pryor was in, and I think the voters voted down that particular charter.
yeah, I think Susan Snyder also spoke to that.
I don't think it even got past the charter committee. It didn't get past the charter.
And I think the important part is to however you set up that discussion is that it is a thorough enough and detailed enough discussion to look at everything.
Mhm,
That's especially what's going on today.
mhm. Well, I think perhaps that's, we've got budget cycles coming up. We have other things. So maybe that the charter discussion is something to happen later in the year. If that's something that's of
And
interest.
unless the public wants to move forward with it because of interest to move in that direction, I would be sure willing to support that.
Okay, so it sounds like, am I hearing, commissioners, that you would like to table this discussion, establishing a board of county commissioners,
But not kill it.
not kill it, table it, for another day, and move on to some other discussion items.
From that today.
And then maybe meanwhile, we could look at what it would do to establish a charter committee or see who.
So when we look at where we're at with the probate, and I'm really good either way because I think the challenge is is it the consensus of the court to leave the order where it's at?
Yeah, there's some other issues at hand. It's not a simple rescission. I don't think can happen because the juvenile jurisdiction cannot be taken back.
Right.
So it can't be rescinded. So we're gonna, if the court wished to pull back the probate piece, then we would have to figure out a mechanism to pull that, just that piece.
So can we amend that order just to pull that piece out?
I would have to talk and get some guidance from legal counsel on how to do that.
Well, I'd be interested in what you find out on that, but I'm also, we haven't been doing, we've been moving it case by case and we've got it in order to move it as a blanket now. And I believe our legal counsel, their legal counsel was then, but you ought to go get a legislative fix when you can behind that, which raises the question of a challenge. And, that challenge is probably gonna have to come from the public, somebody in the public, in the community.
Would have to come from somebody with standing, legal standing in the court.
That, the question is, would it be challenged or not? And whether to leave it or not leave it, and, it's,
Yeah, the current probate cases are not, there's no question, because they were signed under, there's two
Right.
court orders under, there's the one that we passed, and then there's one that I signed individually to make sure there was clear documentation in each of those files. So those have been transferred.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's see, let's move on to 6.1, which is discussion and possible action regarding approval of county administrator hiring procedures. I appreciate the comments questioning whether this was raised during the public meeting. It was indeed. I believe Mr. Turp actually was the one who first raised the idea. There were multiple people, well, several of you were in the room and heard him say that. There were several others who suggested this might be a path forward. So we have followed up. This is just to move this forward. I wanted to just kind of note from a process standpoint, the documents, the draft documents before you, in order, should the court want to move forward with an administrator and want to be able to interview candidates in executive session. There is a process laid out in statute to do that. We used this process back in 2019. Neither of you were on the court then when we hired the chief of staff position, which is now no longer here. And so the draft that's in here was basically utilizing that document and updating some dates. And that original document was prepared by Jeremy Green, who's our legal counsel out of Bend. So I think moving forward is just a discussion about whether you guys want to pursue this, and then if so, digging into the hiring procedures document.
Yeah, I definitely want to move forward with this for reasons I've already discussed. I've been going to again. But yeah, I think, this is similar to what the Port of Arlington went through when they hired and North Gilliam Health District did the same, and I am definitely in favor of moving forward to address our urgency issues that are on the table today.
Could I just ask a question? What is the urgency? That's what I don't understand right here. You referenced that a couple times, but I'm not sure I understand.
Well, I spoke to it in the last meeting, and
I guess I missed it.
the urgency is that we have pretty much a crisis going on with what I call what's been created through the election process because of the structure of government that we have today, and being able to utilize employees against employees and cause what I'm calling a hostile work environment. And we have lost the executive administrator to the judge's position from the county staff.
Pat, would you speak louder, please?
We
Would you speak
Yeah.
louder?
We have lost the executive administrator to the county judge, was done the 31st of December. We lost that position. Our administrator here has an interview with another county on Friday. We are going to be unable to perform the functions that we're mandated to perform. We have a lot of big items that we've been working on that are going to end up in limbo if we don't move forward with some method to continue to operate. We're basically being handcuffed by the election cycle at this point. We have employees that will not even look at each other in the courthouse, let alone speak to each other. It's appalling what's happened.
I disagree. Coming from working in the courthouse,
Yeah.
and I certainly disagree.
And
with Leah's statement
Don.
that we as
Don.
children-
Hey, Con,
Hey, honey, what?
let the
But
commission,
you need to let the public speak too.
Pat
That
is
is your
in
biggest issue.
Pat is in the middle of.
I would recommend that everybody from the public,
Interrupt him, please.
I would recommend that everybody from the public that has questions, you don't have to believe me. You can talk to Delaney Watkins. You can talk to Miranda Reese. You can talk to Rachel Boyer. You can talk to a couple of other employees, and if you want to know their names, I'm not gonna pull them into it right now. That we have employees that are worried about their future. We have employees that are moving to other positions because they're uncomfortable about the future.
Mhm.
And it's not something that's been caused by the county court.
Please.
No.
All right, guys. Hey. Guys, we're gonna maintain.
Can I give you an-
forum here and allow it's the time for the commissioners to be speaking
I'm
right
asking,
now.
I'm just asking, if the answer's no, the answer's no.
The commissioners are speaking right now.
I'll give you an example that I've gone through in the last couple of days and,
Speak up, Pat, we can't hear you, got your hand right over your.
we are in a position where we're managing the employees. And as I said in the last meeting, we should not be in that position. There's other business that we should be doing, other work we should be doing for the county at a much larger scale of importance. And that's why an administrator is important. What happens to a county commissioner, and this is my experience in 3 years, is our judge has too much power, in my opinion, period. It's clearly the case for me. What happens is if something happens or something's happening in another department in the county system, and I get one of you come up and ask me what's going on, I have no way to get that answer without going into a public meeting, which might be in 2 weeks. And might need to be an executive session if it's around an employee issue. But I cannot get that answer right now when I need it. So that's where the beauty is in having an administrator in that position. I can ask that question right now and get that answer today.
Can I ask one other question? And this is honest, just to find out. We elect, the clerk's position, we elect those departments. Aren't our elected officials of those departments
Not all of them.
responsible for their management of their employees?
They are.
The sheriff's office managing the sheriff's office.
They are absolutely responsible and they manage their own departments without our interference. The only place we play in that is the fiscal part of the budgeting.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
But we have a whole nother set of employees that include a road department, a weed department, a transportation department, family services, planning, juvenile, that falls under us. It's not under any other elected officials. The bulk of the services that are provided are coming out of what we do. Our employees. And those things that are managed daily by one court member make it really hard on the other 2 court members to have any input on what's going on in those daily operations. We're handcuffed. We can't participate. A board of commissioners can, and if you have an administrator in place and so-and-so, Dawn, has an issue with what's going on with the administrator, she can now go to whatever commissioner she is comfortable with to bring that issue forward, which now has to go to a board to make a decision instead of one individual. And that's the power
Is
I'm
that the
talking about.
purpose of, you had talked previously about divvying up the different departments?
Well, that's
Like,
been a,
you had said that you were over the road department?
yeah, that's been part of the process we've gone through under our current structure. In the 3 years that I've been here, when I came on board, we had a chief of staff. A lot of criticism around that because employees were uncomfortable with that structure. So it didn't help our morale or anything that was going on then. We moved from that structure to siloed reporting by departments where Leah has transportation, local health, senior services. Liz has got the libraries, the planning, the juvenile, maintenance, yeah, veterans. And I have the road and weed departments. And so an example of what happens when an elected official in my position that should be worrying about what's going on in Salem on Monday. We had an incident in the road department that potentially could have cost the county a lot of money, which made me step up and say, we need to look at our risk factors around the road department. And I brought in a consulting inspector from OSHA to do a consulting inspection of our maintenance shop last Friday. We went through the process and found out where we're at risk, things that we need to correct to be in compliance. And Monday or Tuesday, the road department's upset because I bring somebody in and the statement I heard yesterday was that I'm gonna get us fined. And the purpose of the whole thing was so that we don't get fined. So we correct things that we're out of compliance with, so we don't get fined. So just the fact that I'm managing that and having to do that when an administrator could be doing all of that is, I'm baffled by the system.
I think for me, the urgency comes, Pat has alluded that, to staffing turnover, which has occurred. I have chosen not to rehire into my executive assistant position because I need clarification. I do not want to hire somebody in who we immediately have to let go because the court goes a different way with how they want to manage administration. So part for me, there will come a time when we don't have staff, if they decide to move on. And so I just need clarity one way or the other on where the court is going. If they're planning on hiring an administrator, then that means that we're changing the budget. We're doing a lot of things that we're coming into here in the next couple of months. And so I think that's probably where the urgency is coming from. We have to write the budget to fit whatever structure the court decides. That's going to start here in the next month or so. And we've run without staff during transitions while I've been here, but we really are just treading water until we get enough staff. And we do have some very significant projects that we have grant funding for that need to be managed. And without staff, I'm a little concerned about how we get to everything we need to and keep those funders happy. So that's for me.
And we have some economic development potential out there that is requiring a lot of time right now and staff help. And critical to Gilliam County in the long-term future of Gilliam County, it's sustainability. And so, yeah, a shortage of staff right now is not good. And we are really fortunate, I think, because at least with our county staff, even if Miranda gets a job, she will help us on Fridays, which is, transitionally help that's a value of an employee that we're losing. We have the same thing that's gone on with Delaney for the last 3 or 4 months. And I hear yesterday she's going to continue with the project she started that on the construction at the courthouse and staying involved in that to help us with it. That's the value employees that we're losing, that it's a shame, folks. It's a shame that that's happening. Think about what caused that. I explained it.
Leah,
Thank you.
thank you. Leanne, what your thoughts?
I don't even.
Or you want to think about it some more before? I mean, while you're thinking, I will say that, I mean, I think the question, when people have asked me about this, they asked me about it when we have the chief of staff here too, is I think as a public, it's thinking about there's only so many hours in the day. And do you want your county court members to be focused on things that are happening solely within the courthouse, making sure that people's time is properly accounted for and making sure that their vacation requests get granted and that their benefits, were loaded properly and all of those things, which is what we're doing now. Or do you want us to be focused on developing housing and bringing broadband? And there's only so much time. And those of us who have sat in these chairs before, I think Steve sitting in the back, I suspect, well, he might not agree with this specifically, could tell you that there are a lot of weeks that you go home and you had a list on Monday that you thought you were going to get to, and somebody else comes in and completely hijacks that list because there's an employee crisis or something else that you're dealing with. When you have an administrator that is in there that is keeping sort of the ship afloat, that allows the folks that you elected to make the big decisions to actually focus on the big decisions. And I'm still talking right now.
I understand. Sit down. I'm not saying, tell us sit down. He said sit.
I did not say sit, for the record. So, I mean, I think that's the question. I think if you look at how a lot of our partners run, they all run with an administrator and a board. You don't expect, I talked about this during the last meeting. We don't every 4 years elect our superintendent of schools, right? We elect a school board that oversees him or her. And we expect that that board is going to hire an administrator who's well qualified to supervise staff, to make sure that they're in compliance with state law, all of those sort of things. If you look at our cities, the cities also are employing administrative staff who is really running the day-to-day business. Each city does it a little bit differently, but both of them have that professional staff that are in place that provide continuity as counselors come and go, as board members come and go. Port of Arlington, same thing. Judd is serving as the administrator, running the day-to-day. The board may change, but there's a continuity that occurs. We're the only institution that does not do that. We're the only one that the administrator turns over every 6 years. And in our case, it has turned over every 6 years for the last, 18 years. So there isn't continuity from person to person. I do things differently than Steve. Steve did things differently than Pat. Pat did things differently than Laura. So I think maybe there's a question to be asked of if all of our other entities are running with an administrator and a board, why is that okay over there and doesn't work for this county? I mean, we do that regularly and we don't even think about it. I don't think any of us want to go to a situation where we're electing the superintendent every 4 years out of whoever raises their hands. We wouldn't think that was appropriate. So why are we doing that with the county government that has, frankly, we're the largest government entity and the largest budget, and probably in terms of the breadth of the things that we touch, probably the widest in terms of everything from law enforcement to public transportation to roads to basically anything that the state legislature doesn't want to do is our responsibility. So
I think probably,
no, go ahead. So
I think probably what might add to that would be that the school boards are volunteer. These different entities are run, excuse me, by volunteer. The staff is paid, but the boards are volunteer. And perhaps the perception is, since this board is paid, that perhaps there's the expectation that I don't mean this to be confrontational.
No, not at all.
What pops in my mind is perhaps with that compensation, we expect these
See, and
jobs to be done because they've been under the headings for so many years, but that's been the expectation.
And I get that. I think there's certainly some models. I mean, some of our colleagues in other counties are volunteer. I think Hood River County doesn't pay its commissioners at
I
all.
think Clatsop.
Clatsop County, I think
Right.
are volunteers. So there is definitely that, right. The one thing I think I would maybe point out is when I was running, nobody ever asked me if I'd ever managed people. Nobody ever asked me if I had HR experience. Most of the job right now are those things. And so when voters, I think, you know, they asked me things like, what are you gonna do to address housing? You know, how are you gonna support the school system? I mean, those are big picture things. So I completely take your point. There's an expectation, especially in my position with the salary, what it is, that those responsibilities would fall to me. I do think there's an opportunity with me leaving office at the end of the year for the court to consider whether that's still the right model. And whether it makes sense to make some changes so that there is that continuity of professionalism on the administrator side where, you know, I think for staff and also for the community, that there's a consistency in how things are run at the courthouse. Generally means that I think you're gonna see better services, more consistent services, and better personnel management and things. Then frankly, you can see in the records that judges approached it very differently. And some were very focused on what was happening in the courthouse, and others chose to spend their time outside of the courthouse. And I'm not saying either is right. I'm just pointing out that we all have had to make choices about which we were going to focus our time on because there isn't enough time to do both really well. So.
I have a comment. Don't you have a human resources person? You say you're dealing with human resources. Pat has troubles dealing with people. Don't you have a human resources person?
Yes, we have a part-time person that helps us with some of that. It's still, though, the decisions themselves are ours to make. So her role is to walk us through and help make sure all the documentation is there. But that still means that the homework and the legwork is still happening. And there are a lot of things related to managing personnel that are not necessarily going through HR itself. Like there's other questions that come up in departments that we manage all the time.
Compliance and, I mean,
That are really.
I'm not
outside of
having
the
problems
HR.
with employees. Employees are having problems with the fact that I'm wanting to be safe, I guess. I mean, I don't know what that's about, but yeah, I'm trying to offer tools so that we don't have risk within the county. I've got a consulting outfit coming in this next month to review our shop waste in the shop to make sure we're handling all of our shop waste according to compliance with DEQ and EPA. And those are just risk management decisions that I'm making because I'm managing a department that takes me away from doing what I think I should be doing. And I said in the last meeting, I learned how to do this from commissioners around the state that are doing this job. They taught me what to do. And those commissioners are not in a position where they're managing personnel and they're changing commissioners every election cycle. They're commissioners that have been there for 16 and 20 years that are getting better and better and doing more successful work and effective work for their counties because they've been there and they continue to learn how to do it better. And I said last week that 2 weeks ago that Tillamook's losing David Yamamoto as a commissioner, retired the first of the year, and Steve Kramer is not going to run for Wasco County, and Les Perkins is not going to run for Sherman County or for Hood River County. They've been there for a long time. Man, those counties are going to suffer with those people no longer in there doing that work for them. And it's going to take a while to replace them. You don't learn it overnight. So the things that I see with the administrator, the communications with the county court and how they can communicate with what's going on in operations and as a board gets better, communications with staff and the county board or court, however you want to call it, even the elected officials you're removing a layer of government that gets affected by emotions and all drama and all kinds of other things gets affected by it that turns over rapidly. And that's not happening around the state. We talk about uniqueness. Is that the kind of uniqueness we really want? Is that fact that our employees live in this cycle where every 4 years to 6 years, they get a new boss and they get to lobby for a new boss? Is that the cycle we want? Man, it's not much stability for a staff. It's really hard to manage them.
All right, commissioners, Leah, did you have anything you wanted to add? Just taking it in?
Yeah.
Sure thing.
Okay, I have a couple of things to say at this point. First of all, when the commissioners are speaking, you tell us not to interrupt. But when we're speaking, they are allowed to interrupt, and I just really think there needs to be a little more mutual respect. And that's one problem I have. Another problem I have here is that HR is supposed to be confidential, and yet you're telling me that HR comes to you? That doesn't make any sense to me, because that breaks confidentiality for the employees.
HR works with the supervisors, yes,
And that's you guys.
correct.
Whoa. So if a person goes to HR with a complaint about one of you guys, what happens?
It depends on the nature of the complaint.
Uh-huh. Okay. And going back to one of the things that I said initially, from what you're describing, Pat, for some of the needs that you have, for instance, for an administrator, from some of the things you've described, I'm wondering if your renovation of the courthouse is going to include a boxing ring and a referee, because it sounds like there's a lot going on up there that we don't know about. And I'm asking, and what I ask is that when you come here and you're talking about a hiring committee, I think you're doing it backwards. Apparently you don't. I think that we should be looking at whatever qualifications you're looking at. I think we should be looking at a job description. I think that's what we should be discussing when we're talking about these people, but we have no documentation on that. I think that's backwards. I think we should be able to see it. I think we should also be able to see policies and procedures. And none of that exists. You want to form a committee, but nobody knows what's going into that committee, because we have no documentation. I've said enough.
Can I just one?
Steve.
I'll be really quick at this. I want to take the time to thank you guys for taking.
Dana, Steve's talking. Thank you.
I want to thank you guys for taking the time, stepping back, and not really, and again, taking a hard look at what it is that you want to accomplish. Allowing us the input, I think, is really going to be something very, very important for this county in the next 20 years. I agree with everything that most of you have said today. This county is really rolling. It started rolling about in 2013, 14, whatever it was, shortly before I come in. And keeping these wheels rolling is not going to be an easy job, no matter who steps in the future. I thank you for stepping back, slowing this down a little bit, giving more people opportunities for input. As you can see, this place has been full of people who are opposing the direction that you're going. I know there are proponents out there. I know there are. I think the two groups need to get together. Right now, there is a big fracture down through the middle of this county. And getting those groups together to begin creating a solution here should be our #1 priority.
Amen.
Yes.
Don't disagree.
#1. Thank you again. I appreciate your work. What I can say, Liz, It's 24/7,
Yeah.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's with you all the time. Pat, Leah, you're just really getting into some of that. Pat, you're in the middle of all of it. And it may be a call from Coos County. It might be Harney County. Let alone Condon or Olex. Comes from all over, but it is 24/7. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners,
So do you have anything else? I mean, in the sense of urgency that I've been speaking to, has not gone away during this conversation. I move to adopt the Gilliam County Administrator.
hold on.
Oh, you got it.
So we have to actually go through these.
Okay. So I thought that we had, that you adopt
I've got,
the fact that we start through that process.
I've got a couple of these questions I need from you.
Okay.
Okay, so.
So we're gonna put the
So,
hiring
yeah.
procedure in place prior to,
Correct. So to
Okay.
walk folks through, basically, this is just a document saying this is how the discussion will move forward.
Okay.
And so it lays out, to Dana's point about needing to see job descriptions, all of that. This has to be in place first in order for us to follow an orderly process of deliberation. So what you see in yellow are things that were just dates that we put in, like without really any input from this board, obviously. And there's some issues as well on the hiring committee that we would need to identify who those folks are gonna be. So the first one at the top, if the intent is for a motion to be made today, then that would be January 1. Or January 3rd, sorry, 2024. At the very top. And same with the, under step 1. That first yellow is January 3rd. 2024.
so we're saying, okay,
See what I'm doing?
yep, you're going up here.
So the hiring procedures adoption, assuming there's a motion today, would be January 3rd,
Okay,
2024. Question on the, because this, of course, sets in motion changes to the rest of the schedule. February 7th, right now, is when we would be looking at the administrator profile and position description. That would give next meeting. And then the meeting after. So that would give 2 meetings to look at the position description. Is that?
Both the meetings. in
We need-
January.
so you're gonna bring it one meeting? Explain that to me again, walk me through.
So right now, the tentative schedule would be a potential adoption of the administrator profile, which is also required under statute, and position description. But it would be set for the February 7th meeting, which
Yeah.
would mean there would be a draft to look at and discuss next meeting, the 17th. And then, and so then the public would have 2 opportunities basically to comment and provide input. And then possible adoption then on February 7th.
Okay.
And then based on that, we would bring back potential salary ranges for the 21st of February meeting. And assuming all of those are adopted and approved, then recruitment would begin February 23rd. We would give about a month because it's a big job that we're looking for. And so I think we want to give plenty of time. And then begin scheduling interviews. The April 3rd is an actual county court meeting. So we would be meeting, we would have a regular meeting, and then we would likely meet an executive session in the afternoon. And interview applicants with the broader hiring committee, which is still a question in here that we'll need to sort out. And then with the idea that we would then need to go through the process of, assuming that that hiring committee had a preferred finalist. Then there's a negotiation period that takes place, with the preferred candidate. And then that would have to come back to the court for approval, the actual appointment as well as the, letter of employment. So that would be scheduled for May 1st. Depending on the individual's own personal status and how much notice they want to give their employer, you're looking at June 1st.
Or longer.
Well, yeah, it's a long process.
And meanwhile, we would be also going through the process of writing the budget for the upcoming fiscal year and making sure that all of that is buttoned up.
Yeah, feedback.
Point of order.
Compensation board.
My hearing's not real great, but did I hear you guys already establish this position of administrator?
No,
Oh, yeah.
It seems like the cart before the horse.
It's the hiring procedure.
it's the
procedure.
procedures, Mike, that I just
Well, that's
explained.
procedure, but,
This has to come first
This is the procedure
by
to get there.
statute.
okay,
Yeah. And then the job description would come up in the next couple of meetings.
I didn't say job description, I just said position of just the plain word administrator. You guys have already decided that you're gonna have an administrator.
Yeah.
I have. I'm in favor of that, Mike. I made that real clear.
Me too.
What's that?
I said I am in favor of that, and I've made it real clear. We haven't voted yet.
Okay, all right, so that would be, so I think the only dates changes would be the January 3rd in the first paragraph, the second paragraph, and then that adoption of Gilliam County Administrator hiring procedures. The other question, all the other yellows were just based on the timeline changing, there was any. So then the last little bit is the hiring committee. So as was noted, it's got placeholders in there. I think when we hired the chief of staff, it was the full county court. There was one employee on there and I think one elected official. Last time we did it, possibly two. I'd have to go back and refresh. So one thing I wonder about is, given that this person would be supervising union employees, if we want to consider having an employee who is one of the union members. So I mean, generally it's cleaner if we just say like the president.
President, could you say president or designee?
Yeah. So currently, Kelly, are you on? I see her on there, but she might not be
Sorry,
listening.
it took me a second to get back to my computer. I'm here.
Kelly, we would, like to include a union, person in the hiring committee for the administrator. You're the president currently. Are you willing to do that, or is there somebody else from the union that you would recommend?
I would prefer to think on that for a little bit.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we will,
So can we just put union?
a union representative.
I would like to go on record as being an elected official who would love to be on the hiring committee.
Okay. Okay, so there's one of the placeholders.
I think we need to do one of the Gilliam County elected officials also.
I think that would be probably ideal. The elected official that has the most employees is obviously the sheriff. I have not spoken with Gary about it.
That'd be a good idea. You have any thoughts on that?
No, we could have more than one, right?
Well, we're trying to set the committee now.
Okay.
We can't leave it too open-ended. It's gotta be
Mhm.
at least
One union
defined by
representative.
position.
So we could say one Gilliam County elected official.
Mhm.
And currently I had just a committee of 5, but would you like to also include some outside partners?
Yeah, at least 2, maybe 1 from each end or outside.
What do you
But
think?
maybe Jed from the
I
port
think Denise would be.
and Denise.
Okay. Denise, consider yourself added to the list.
Maybe Jed from the port. Is Jed on?
He is on there. Jed. Hey, Jed.
Yeah, I need to think about it some more as well, just the proper role there.
Okay, let's do, and one more community member,
Okay.
and we can figure out that appointment.
How many? That gives us 7?
Gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
I would ask that Sky Krebs would be a great representative for our community.
Well, I would agree with that.
Not at this time.
Sky.
Got another fish in the hook.
Okay, so, we will, you know what, we'll figure out a process to identify that other community member and I'll bring that back, to the next board meeting. Okay, so the hiring procedures, was there anything else in here, commissioners, that you wanted to discuss or amend?
So you had yellowed the deadline, is that on the next page?
Yeah, that was just in case this first, in case you guys wanted to make changes to this first thing. But it matches, the original or the thing on the first page. And then the job descriptions for the announcement and the salary would be filled in after those decisions are made by the board.
One just question,
Yeah, go ahead.
and I know he responded, Jed, that he had to think about it, but wouldn't Jed be, I said you got Denise from the north end, you said you wanted somebody from the south end,
And the
but
port is,
wouldn't Jed be kind of a conflict of interest with your wife on that board too?
yeah, probably.
I just,
Yeah, probably.
we got Denise on the north side, which I think is great, but
No, you're probably right.
Good.
I'd like you guys to make an attempt to include it in such a manner that we get as much representation. Right now, we have 2 commissioners from down up here and 1 from down there. I guess you're from down in that.
Yeah, I
There
am.
you are.
I am.
Anybody? So when you get the committee together, let's make sure that we have a balance. Could you do that? Could you make a balance, make it balanced, so we don't have, you know, the preponderance of the people from Condon deciding who's gonna you know, I mean, let's just make it even. This is a sense of fairness.
Okay, all right, so commissioners, you have 2 options. Well, you have multiple options, but in terms of next steps, you can either make a motion on this as amended, or you can have me bring it back.
I don't wanna. We are in some urgency here. I keep saying, I don't wanna postpone things that we can decide sooner rather than later.
Okay,
So, but we can bring it back with a clean copy and still adopt it at the
We
next
can,
meeting.
we can adopt it here with the amendments.
Okay. So that would move this, because this is,
And then we will
What we had
post, we
before.
can post a clean copy.
So to speak to Lynn's, how is it stacked? I guess it's not really stacked at this point, but it would be with a 7-member committee and.
There's gonna be one will have at least one more. Cause you have 7 members, so there's no way to split it down the middle.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, if we went to, I hate to drop to 6. You'd have to go to 8 to have 4 from each end of the county.
That'd be better.
I think an odd number, better, because you're making any vote amongst yourselves on a particular candidate, you're not gonna have it sit there at a tie.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and
Group, making an odd number.
I'm from the other end, but I represent Gilliam County. I mean, I think that part is Gilliam County as a whole. I always feel that way, but we're probably stacked more to the north end than we are at the south end right now. Depending on what that last position is.
Mhm.
well, is it gonna be more of a scoring process like, interviews that I've sat in on previously?
It will absolutely,
So you're not gonna end up with,
everyone will have their individual score sheets for each candidate.
you're gonna have some that'll float to the bottom and some that'll float to the top.
It's a pretty fair process.
How about one from the middle? There you
Well,
go.
we start at the top and sometimes you have to work down.
Okay, I think we have enough in here and we'll bring back a process. I will circle back with the union and with maybe Gary first on the electeds. And then we'll come back with a process for the identifying the other community member. Okay, so if you guys are ready to proceed, then it would be a motion to adopt procedures as amended with the changes noted.
I move to adopt the Gilliam County Administrator hire procedures as amended.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the Gilliam County Administrator hiring procedures as amended. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we will come back with the first draft of an administrator profile and position description for public comments and feedback from the commissioners. Okay. Moving on. Let's move into 6.2, which was added by Commissioner Shannon. This is related to the BTAP grant application, which for those who are not familiar, it is a grant that is coming out of Business Oregon for technical assistance related to broadband deployment to help communities get ready to go compete for the federal broadband dollars that are about to be distributed.
So just to be kind of clear on what's going with broadband in Gilliam County, we can't do anything with anything from about Olex south,
Correct.
or not Olex, I guess it's Michael
Michael.
south.
Yeah,
So
so
we're really talking about north end broadband, but the fund's there and we still need to address those issues on the north end. And I guess my concern, why I want to make sure we got this on here today, there's a deadline on this application. Who's going to do that work? How do we do that? Make sure it gets done. So we don't miss out.
yeah, so here's the update for folks who are unaware. Oregon Telephone, now Rally Networks, was able to tap into a federal funding that is limited to incumbent providers. So people who are already serving, and they have locked up the funding for the south end of the county. So that is, we are not able to access that. They are required under law to deliver fiber to every home in that territory. So, and I have already spoken with them a couple of times. think they are hoping to have that roll out in the next year or two, but their actual deadline with the federal government is 2028. So there's nothing we can do about that. There's nothing we could have done to prevent that. It's their right to serve the customers within their region. And the good news for South County then is that that piece of the pie, if you live in South County, you will be getting fiber-based internet to your home in the next couple of years. But that does present, we still have unincorporated North County. One of the things that they raised with me, and I am going to be working with the assessor's office to figure this out, is it's complicated, but some of the funding is going to be released actually based on a school district level. And Raleigh wasn't sure that they actually have all of Condon school districts in their territory. And so we're trying to make sure that the north part of the Condon school district does not get left behind. So our plan is going to have to figure out how we can serve basically 2 school districts under the federal guidelines. It's complicated. We'll figure it out. But anyway, that's where we are. And in terms of applying, I am happy to do it. This will be a new frontier for me. If you guys would be open to this, Nick Green, who is the former administrator for John Day and is working with Morrow County. He is the executive director now of the Broadband Consortium in Morrow County, which is also doing a similar process to us. He and I have had a couple of conversations about either him contracting directly with us or us trying to piggyback on Morrow County's application, since there's some synergy between the two. So if you would like, we can bring that back to the next meeting.
Yeah, you'll have to,
We're gonna have to.
move pretty rapidly.
Mhm.
Okay,
Because when's it due by?
the 2nd of February.
Yeah, these are just for the technical assistance funds, so it's not for the big.
It's for like staffing and whatnot to help move this forward.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even him getting the grant, some of this could help pay for.
It would help
helping-
pay for
Helping him through the process of getting us set up for
Yeah, I think they
synergy.
the broadband office has capped it at 150,000 per local entity applying, so it should probably more than cover.
So
costs
in
for him.
local entity, would that be the local entity, even if you were working regionally, joining with somebody else, you would each have access?
I would have to go back and read. I don't know if they are breaking it out by county, where each county is allocated that amount. But that was my understanding, was that we would each be eligible for 150.
It sounds like it by the language, but
Yeah. Do you guys have a preference in partnering with Morrow County or going it alone
I would prefer partnering with Gilliam County because we have a staffing issue.
with Morrow County? Okay.
I think it's something Delaney could have helped with, but that option's gone.
Yeah, okay. I will touch base with Nick after we wrap up here and also call the chair over in Morrow County and Sykes. His name slipped my mind. Okay. But we will move forward. I'll come back with an update during the next meeting, so you know where we are. But it sounds like the consensus is for me to move forward, regardless. Correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move forward with getting it submitted, and then we'll come back with whether it's in partnership with Morrow County or if we're doing our own.
Let's not miss the opportunity.
Yes, I know. Okay,
Will it hold more weight if we partner with Morrow County?
So the rules are still being written on the broader funding mechanism. The Oregon Broadband Office is still going through the rulemaking process. In initial drafts, they were prioritizing regional approaches over go it alone entities, so it likely would be helpful. But part of it is the Morrow County folks have a consortium that's actually been developed between their county government and port government. And I'm not sure whether that structure would allow us to be a partner. So we might just have to share resources rather than formally be part of their consortium. They've got a 190 set up that can be complicate things.
Okay.
So. Anyway, okay, let's move on to announcements and next meeting. Next meeting will be January 17th. That one will be in Arlington at the Quorum building. Downstairs. Question for you guys for the future Condon meetings while the courthouse is under construction. Do you want to continue meeting in this building?
This is fine with me. I mean,
Good question to Shannon.
Can we continue meeting here?
It's fine.
Okay, you'll be here with ice or de-icer and all that.
I will be here hopefully with.
Yelling at me. Like, "Don't come up the stairs."
Okay, so the contractor did say that they're a little bit ahead of schedule, which is great already, considering they've only been here for 2 weeks. But hopefully that holds and we're back in the building soon.
So are they about done with the asbestos part?
I believe they should be complete this week. When they got into the walls, there was asbestos in the pipes that they had not originally factored in. So there's likely going to be a slight change order to address the asbestos in the walls. Yeah, because they use that stuff liberally. So
Great installation.
but I think the downstairs, I think they have already completed the jury room abatement. I think they've completed the county court abatement and they're working on the bathrooms now. So hopefully in the next couple of days, and they'll be coming in to do air tests and to be able to clear it, that it's abated. So
Good.
Pat, what do you got going on?
I spent most of the last 2 weeks participating in conversations around a lot of the recent agenda items, and a lot of my time has been just talking with people in the community that were asking questions and want to have conversations. Legislative short sessions coming up, and I was on the Eastern Oregon Caucus call yesterday morning, first one starting into that process to hopefully help guide our legislators to good results. And I'm going to go to Salem for the AOC days on Monday, and there's going to be a joint committee meeting with Public Health and Health and Human Services, a lot around ballot measure 110 and public mental health and those issues. So we're gonna go there, and then McKed is doing their community outreach to Gilliam County meeting for a strategic plan on how to move into that economic district, development district, part of the process through EDA, and they were gonna do that meeting on the 17th. They've now moved it to the 30th because we have county court on the 17th.
Got it.
And so participation on what you're looking for from McKed would be really good if you'd show up for that meeting. Anybody that's interested in economic development in Gilliam County and how they can help us with it. And we become part of their strategic plan. And like I said before, we're doing some safety and waste stream consulting stuff through the road shop, and we're working on that, get that completed over the next 30 days or so. That's it.
Is that all?
That's it.
So on the last day of December, got a official word from Paula Hall, who is the Chief Executive Officer for CAPECO. And they are now the official new owners of the East Oregonian building. So they'll be moving their offices to there in the coming weeks and revamping it. So their whole thing is they will they're gonna move out, sell their other buildings to recoup some of the money they had to lay out to buy this building. But it's a really good move, and I think George Murdoch was a driving force behind that. So anyway, congratulations to them. Rachel and I and Nathan sat through the exit interview with the audit. So the draft is now available, so I don't know when he'll officially get the audit without the draft written through the middle of it, but that's coming, so that's over with. And pretty much it.
It was the holidays, so
Yeah.
you're entitled to a little bit of time off. For me. I will be in Salem next week, for AOC. I will also be talking to legislators about, some early learning funding priorities with my early learning council hat on. Which include, asking the legislature to fully fund employment-related daycare. We have, for those who are unfamiliar, there is a wait list, for folks who are waiting to access that service. And we're also lobbying to increase the dollar amount that comes to rural providers, because there's a disparity between an operator, a childcare provider in urban counties and rural counties, and how much they're reimbursed by the state for providing their service. We're going to be doing that. Let's see. Mostly just regular meetings happening. There'll be a 911 board meeting coming up here on next Tuesday. We are still short on dispatchers, but it is getting a little bit better, I think. Jessica is working hard to get new bodies in. There's a couple who are waiting to clear background checks. So hopefully we'll finally be able to give some of the dispatchers some relief. We also have a couple of contracted dispatchers who are filling in, so that our folks are not working 12 hours, 7 days a week anymore. So that's good news. Meeting regularly with the contractor in the courthouse. It is going smoothly. The abatement, as I just mentioned, is hopefully going to wrap up this week. They will start framing in new walls and roughing in electrical next week. And yeah, we're just kind of moving along on that front. Appreciate the public's patience while the courthouse was closed last week so they could do their work. Yeah, the rocket team is still meeting regularly.
How is transportation, how's Todd doing? Cause he's out of his.
They're actually
They're in
still in
their
their
office.
office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I gave my brother bad information then.
Yep,
No,
no,
they're
they're
still
still
in
in their
there.
office.
And Sabrina's still in the back, so.
Michelle was displaced just temporarily, and she'll probably be displaced a little bit later. Planning will be displaced. They redo some walls. And then of course the county court and the juvenile court, DMV is closed for the next 2 months. They will be back in March to offer services.
I'm holding court at the fairgrounds for trials.
And then circuit court meets usually on Fridays. The contractors are doing 410, so the circuit court should not be interrupted with its normal schedule on Fridays. So I think that was it. Let me just make sure there was nothing else that I needed to.
So I have a question.
Sure.
When do we visit about auditors and what is the,
Would you,
because I
We can talk
know
about it
they
now.
were a temporary
mhm.
for this year, so.
So I think the plan is to bring an RFP for the court to approve to release for a new auditor.
Okay.
It's about time anyway. I think we appointed this one, maybe my first year, so they've been on for about 5 years. It's probably time to shift anyway. And so I think Rachel will put together an RFP to bring. Did you want the current auditor to come in and talk to us about the audit? Sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't.
I just got the draft the other day, so I kind of wanted to look through it, and then if I have some questions, I thought I'd just email him and see if he could talk to me, yeah.
Okay.
So,
But I haven't had a chance to really, I mean, it's 140 pages or whatever it is, so.
Light reading.
Yeah.
so that we're in the loop, I would like to have the auditor come here and we have that, you have that discussion in public meeting.
Yeah, they had that, you know, when at the Capco meeting, when I was out there, they had the auditor on the Zoom and they went through it, so. The exit audit lasted about, or that exit interview deal lasted about 20 minutes at the most, so it's.
Yeah, if you go through that and have, I'd like to have that, let's have that discussion here.
Mhm.
So why don't Leah, you go through the document. As soon as there's a final one, we'll get him to come in and see us.
Okay.
And then simultaneous to that, we'll also be putting out an RFP
Okay.
for audit proposals.
Okay.
Okay,
I think they were about 40,000.
I think that's right. Yeah. And then a little bit more we do for the Fair Board too.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I wanted to note for people is we do have some committee vacancies. So it'll be posted in the paper. The one that I am most concerned about filling is planning. Because we obviously need a quorum to move that forward. Marta, thank you for raising your hand to be, she's still back there. We'll get Marta reappointed, but there's still one vacancy that we are looking for letters of interest. So if you or anybody you know might be interested in serving, I think they meet once a month roughly, sometimes a couple months go by in between their meetings, depending on what applications Michelle has. So please be on the lookout. We've asked for letters of inquiry for budget and compensation and planning as well. If you're interested in serving in any of those, just send an email to Miranda and we'll get those included in an upcoming agenda. And I think that is all that I have. Shannon, did you have anything else? Did you want to talk
I did.
briefly? Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
So I wanted to say thank you, first of all, for the county granting South Gilliam County Ambulance Service funds for a capital project. In 2008, we bought an ambulance that was a Ford with a 6.4 liter engine. And any of you in the room that are familiar with that caused us more problems than you can imagine. We had times we had to replace the engine in it. We had a time when we were transporting a patient that the ambulance stopped. Fortunately, the other ambulance happened to be in nearby vicinity because we'd had 2 transports in a short amount of time. So the second ambulance was able to go get the patient and continue the transport. We had a fire in the engine compartment of that ambulance. We have had numerous problems with it. Normally, we replace our ambulances once every 20 years. So that would have been due for replacement in 2028. But based on all of the mechanical issues we had, we went to the county and said, would you be willing to grant us money for a capital project so that we can get a new ambulance? We ordered the new ambulance in like April of 21. We got it in October of this year. Because supply chain issues caused quite a delay with getting it. Just for information purposes, probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we were running about 110 calls a year. Last 2 years ago, we ran 157 calls. So our call volume has increased quite a bit. Last year, we ran about 150, somewhere around that area calls. This year, we're already at 88 calls through yesterday. So our call volume keeps going up every year. We have times when we actually have had, in my time on the ambulance service, I started in 2008. We have had times where we've had 3 calls within an hour's time. So we actually need 2 ambulances because we need to be able to deal with that. Last, in April, we had 4 calls in a 24-hour period. 3 of those calls happened within such a short amount of time that both ambulances were out. We had the 3rd call, the first ambulance came back, took the 3rd patient, and then within a 12-hour time period, we had a 4th call. So having that extra ambulance is really important for us. Our mutual aid partners for ambulance would be Fossil, who has 1 ambulance, North Gilliam, who has 2, but they're also very busy. And so us having that 2nd ambulance was really important. Anyway, the ambulance is here. We put it in service on the 1st part of November. And we have been doing transports with both ambulances. Before we would do transports mainly with our number 1 ambulance and only use the older ambulance just kind of as needed. Right now, we're alternating ambulances, so we're using 1 ambulance every other time. The ambulance is in the bay. Jim, Heidi, and I spent yesterday watching the ambulances to make them look really nice and shiny if anybody wanted to look at them. And then we had a call last night and have both ambulances out of the station, so they no longer look nice and shiny.
They look authentic.
You are welcome to come and view the ambulance if you would like to see, and we sincerely appreciate the funding from the county court to do that. We would not have been able to do that had we not had that funding. When I talked to our vendor, our funding request, or what we had thought we were gonna need, went up about $17,000 from our initial, what we thought in 21. Fortunately, the other thing with the ambulance service that I would like to say for the South End ambulance, we have pretty much been autonomous as far as funding since 2009. So we are not receiving, we could receive tax dollars. We're underneath the health district, but we have not received tax dollars from the health district since 2009. We are pretty much operating on our own. Anyway, the ambulance is out there. If anybody wants to come and look, they're set up the same. So that's nice, so that we get in 1 ambulance. It's not like, okay, where is stuff that's in the same place in both ambulances? So you're welcome to come and view the new ambulance if you want to.
Wonderful.
I will also add to, it is, as a EMT for 32 years almost now, I appreciate the fact that we can all ride in the front on the way there and on the way back, because as somebody who likes to get car sick, it's tremendous. And it's a nice ride back where people can kind of debrief after calls. So they're great ambulances.
Yeah, both ambulances are crew cabs.
Yeah, and Shannon and Cindy do a great job. So, thank you. And then this is Eileen Flory, and she is a new transportation dispatcher. So welcome aboard.
Why, thank you,
Yay.
thank you.
So,
And also an EMR on our ambulance.
yes,
service.
she is. So
Lots of hats.
she's not very far away. So,
Okay, so
Open the door and start it to heat it up.
yeah, there you go.
all right, so what we're gonna do is we will formally adjourn the regular meeting. A quorum of the court will be going to see the ambulance. We're obviously not making any decisions. We're just gonna go see the new ambulance. So for folks who are signed on, there's no more business before the court, and it is 12 noon even, and I will go ahead and adjourn these.
Thank you.